Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 162 of the On Air Advocate. Where at the On Air Advocate, we look to provide education, support, and empowerment for all of those with different abilities, mental and medical illnesses, and their caregivers. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Tammy Flynn, and I am the host and producer of the On Air Advocate, and I am super excited if you're taking time out of your afternoon to catch this live, or whether you are catching it on the replay. Now, as always, if there is anyone in your network or circle that you think this content could be relevant or helpful for, please hit the share button and share the love with others. Now, as you guys know, we kicked off yesterday our All Things Employment series, and I am so excited today to have another one of our amazing community members on, Sarah Sweeney. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. As Tammy said, my name is Sarah, and I'm 35 years old, and I have spastic diplegia, cerebral palsy, and I use a wheelchair.
And Sarah, when we're talking about employment, and I think that I'm just so happy that you're here, because to have everybody at different ages, different levels, and different scenarios really can give outside communities the big picture. Now, you are 35 years old, you have gone through high school, you've done your undergrad, you have your master's degree, okay?
I do.
You have your master's degree in social work. And so, can you take us a little bit through this employment journey from whether it be from that start of high school, or if you want to start it with after your undergrad?
I mean, when I was in my undergrad, I did work study in for the university system, getting donations for the university, and I worked in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs, kind of doing secretarial work and things like that. After I left undergrad, I went straight to my graduate work at Tulane University in New Orleans, Louisiana, and we had to do our internships. So I had a couple different internships. My first internship was at Turo Infirmary, which was a brain injury and pain clinic. It was a regular hospital, but the places that I was in were the brain injury, spinal cord injury, and the pain clinic. And then I transferred over to adult day health care, with people, with seniors and people with brain injuries. So I did that until I graduated in December of 2009. And then I decided that since I had made it through my graduate degree, I would kind of throw a dart on a map, and I moved to Denver, Colorado. So that was a whole different journey there.
Right. So before you left to go to Denver, had you already applied for the position that you were going to have out of your master's, or were you applying once you got there?
I started applying once I got out there.
Okay.
And I had a few interviews. I went on quite a few interviews, actually, but I got 2 interviews that I actually received the position, and they were at hospitals, and it was a company where they placed you where they felt that you would be the best fit based on your qualifications. So the person that interviewed me knew that I was in a wheelchair, because we had a face-to-face interview. But when he relayed that information to the director of the hospital, she decided that it was not a good fit. And instead of, because they technically can't discriminate, she said that it was in my best interest to protect me from the clientele that I wouldn't receive the position that I had been given. So that happened twice while I was there. And, because I had to pay the bills and I was paying my personal care out of pocket because I hadn't yet received Medicaid in the state of Colorado. I had to move back home from there. So I couldn't stay in Colorado to pursue any more jobs.
Now, a couple of things out of that I just want to have us dive a tiny bit into is one we kind of chatted about before this, that when you have walked into many interviews, what is that like? I mean, you had said that you have went on probably over 250 interviews. And what would you say has been the response received? Like when they don't know you're coming in and you're wheelchair bound or your abilities are different, what is like the response you get when you show up for that live interview?
It's a couple different things. They kind of have looked at me and kind of been surprised that I have a master's level education. And two, it's kind of the glazed over look where the interview is over before it begins. They have to, ask me the stereotypical questions you get asked in an interview, but you kind of already know that you have your answer before I walk out of the interview.
And I think that's so interesting. I posted an article that was in the Huff Post, I believe, it came out at the end of last year. And it was talking about employers that now when they have kind of descriptions of job descriptions, something like that says desk work or computer work also has in it may need to lift, may need to do this. So that right off the bat, they can say that you don't meet that qualification, though it's really no part of the job that you're going to be doing.
It's really a cycle because you need experience to get a job and you need a job to be able to acquire experience. So it's definitely a balancing act to get to that point where you have enough to progress and move forward.
Right. Now, and you also said, something that has been quite a struggle is that if you do find employment and you find it in another state, you are also teetering with your SSI and your Social Security and all of that and making your numbers work out. Because sometimes the general public doesn't know that we need all of that to equal out. You can't make too much and whatnot. So how has that played into things?
Right. It's been one of the hardest parts of the struggle because Medicaid and Medicare are a whole different piece. You can make so much money on Medicaid and Medicare and still have money coming in from finances, but then when you add personal care to that equation, it gets cut down to, I would say, just throwing a number out there, to, I would say, a fourth of what you're able to earn. So it's basically nothing. If the government would kind of compartmentalize personal care as something that is not counted against you, it wouldn't be a problem to lose that Social Security because I could still have my basic ADLs met in the morning, afternoon, and night, or whatever the case may be, without having that be a hindrance on how much I am able to make, because that's a whole different number that's added onto the equation.
Right. Well, and when we're talking about that, for people who maybe don't know, ADLs are your activities of daily living, and also, getting ready. So think about this. If anyone was going to a job, we need to get up in the morning, we need to shower, we need to get ready, and you shouldn't be penalized if you need someone to help you do that. And that, and those are the areas that you need help in, and where you can't go over the amount of the amount. correct?
The amount of hours. Yeah. I'm kind of jumping ahead, and if you want me to come back, I will. But from 2014 to 2016, I was living in Texas, and my mom had to stay with me for 7 months while I was able to get onto Medicaid in Texas. And they only gave me 4 hours a day for my personal care. And they knew that I had a position, and I was doing a volunteer stipend work through AmeriCorps. So it was working an actual job. I was just receiving a stipend instead of an actual paid income. But because of the time that I needed to go to work and the amount of hours that I had during the day, I got to the point while I was there, because I loved my position and my job so much and the kids that I was working with, that I ended up sleeping in my wheelchair at night to be able to get up at the time that I needed to get up in the morning to get to work. So I would have my work clothes on before I went to bed, and then I would get up in the morning and go, because the agency didn't open until 10 o'clock. So that would put me super late to work when I needed to start at 7:30.
Right. And I think that so many people miss the piece that we talked about before, is that so many individuals out there, I mean, they're seeking living a purposeful, meaningful life. And sometimes it doesn't always equate to the dollar, but being able to be out
Right.
there and be out in the community and have a job to go to and a circle of friends. I mean, I don't think that the outside world really realizes how much individuals are working so hard to find, whether it's volunteer work, whether it's employment, just to be able to get out of the house and be with others.
Right. It's really that sense of fulfillment and purpose. And when I went on the interview through Skype for the AmeriCorps position, I had enough with all of the interviews that I went to with the glazed over looks and what have you, and I laid it all out on the table, and I was just like, you can give me whatever you want to give me. I'm going to work 110% and do whatever I have to do to fulfill my duties in this position. And to their credit, they were absolutely amazing. They helped me when I needed it. They understood when my PCAs didn't come. It was the best experience employment-wise that I have ever had, but it's also a double-edged sword, because it's one of the hardest things, because I know that I got that, and I'm obviously continuing to strive for it again, but it's not as easy as it should be.
Right. When we were talking about these job interviews and you're going, what is the response? I mean, even online, I mean, what are the responses that you get from, these interviews? What is the, their response back, whether it's in person, over the phone?
Just that automatically I am unable to fulfill the job requirement. And you don't, I'm not saying that everybody should just blindly give somebody opportunity that it may not be a good fit, but you don't know if it's a good fit, and you don't know what reasonable accommodations are until you ask and have an open dialogue with somebody without shutting them down before they even have a chance to prove themselves.
Right. And that's, something that I campaign for very heavily here in the state of Wisconsin, since my child has become a young adult. And, there's all these agencies that you can go to. Like we have the Department of Vocational Rehabilitation, where if you have any disability of any kind, you can go to, and they help you seek employment, and you get a job coach, and you get these people to aid you.
Right.
But guess what? There's a 1 to 2 year waiting list. And guess what?
Right.
There aren't any job coaches. So if you need a job coach, you're really probably only going to get 2 hours a week or 4 hours a week or no hours a week, because you're going to be sitting waiting. And what are all of these young adults doing? They're sitting at home on the couch is what's
Right.
happening. And I don't think that society doesn't realize it because they don't see them. You're not seeing them. So it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. And as you were talking about, every single human being deserves a fulfilling, purposeful life, and deserves to be able to, utilize their talents, be involved in things. But from our perspective, I mean, me and my son, we've gotten turned down for volunteer positions.
Mm-hmm.
When you're, in that world of intellectual and cognitive disabilities, and I'm just like, how can someone turn down for volunteer, when I'm going to be the job coach?
Right.
I mean, it's the craziest thing. It's the craziest equation. Like, I'm like, I don't understand how this can be real. It's kind of like surreal.
It is. I mean, it gets to the point, and this is kind of off the topic of employment, but it gets to the point where when I go out and about on a daily basis, I have to make a conscious effort to let people know that I can communicate and that they can communicate with me, and that it's okay to come up and ask questions and, and do those different things. Because I do think people are scared, but we need to keep bridging that gap so that there isn't as much anxiety on that end.
Right.
To really get to see who a person is and what they have to offer.
And I know you were discussing that, you've moved from, a few different states. And another hard part of that transition is, let's say that you find employment, in Wisconsin next year, which you wouldn't want to move here. It's because cold. But if you would, just like you were saying, with all of the services and things that, you need, support services, sometimes, can you talk about that? How long it takes to get those to kick in when you move?
It's unfortunately, it's different in, excuse me, the phone's going to keep ringing, but
right.
It's different in every state. You don't know, you need to be an established resident before you can start the Medicaid process. And you don't know how long that list is going to be before you're in the front of it. So when I moved to Colorado, I lived there for a year, and the week that I moved back, I got a letter in the mail saying that I was accepted for Medicaid. So I had already started the process to be back in New Hampshire, so it wasn't helpful. And then I moved to Pennsylvania, and that was 6 months. And I moved to Texas, and that was 7 months. So it's not something, unfortunately, that you can plan beforehand. I hope with maybe different legislation or different laws that might be coming down the pike, that becomes a universal thing where when you move states, you don't have to reestablish yourself, because Susie can get in a car or get on a plane or get in a bus and go to Austin, Texas, or Orlando, Florida, and all she needs to find is a place to live, and she's all set. And it should be a universal thing for everybody.
Right. And, for many, making that move, and if we don't change things, that let's say you do find something better, or maybe there is better care in another state, but even if parents are the ones that are the guardians for their adults, trying to proactively be able to plan before you move, you can't move somewhere, especially if somebody is taking medications daily, needing therapy daily, whatnot. And the same in your situation. How do you go somewhere, when you need someone to aid in those things, and you have no support services when you get there for 7 months to a year. I mean, it just,
I mean, you either have to have someone with you, or you have to have the ability to pay out of pocket. And those two choices are have difficulties in themselves. When I moved to Colorado, and in Texas, my mom was able to come with me. She was not very excited to leave her home, to say the least, but she wanted to give me the opportunity to work this position that I had been offered. But now she's 65, and that is not really an option for me to fall back on anymore. So I have to continue to think outside the box to kind of figure out what the next step is,
Right. And I think, there's so many, like you were talking about, there's so many layers to this. It's not just one thing. Like there's part of this that is with all the legislature, government, all of that. The other thing is having employers that want to employ people with different abilities, and
right,
employers that are open to this. Right now, we're incentivizing all of these things, right? And I keep saying that in our state. I'm like, you can't make someone want to employ the disabled. So we may have this whole community concept, but how do we change that mindset? You know what I'm saying? And how do we get out there, and how do we integrate that when there's, this many people with a need and only this many people that want to actually help? And, then you have the barriers like you're talking about, like with Medicaid. And then once you finally find something, that hindering you, as well.
right.
Make that much. And then what if the employer says, well, you have to work these amount of hours, and you're not able to do that. And then if you have to move to a state, and then you don't have the care worker.
It is a cycle of, and it's tiring. It's very very tiring to understand it, because you can have all the support system, the family, the friends, whatever, but in a lot of moments, you're the one in your own shoes, having to deal with 100% of the whatever it may be, the feelings, the emotions, the whatever comes at you, and people can be as supportive as they can be, but they can't really understand it until you have the opportunity to kind of share your story. And that's why I really thank you for doing this and having this platform, because we're all so different, and you can't really have a cookie cutter mold to be able to speak out and
right,
learn about these issues. It's really, really important.
And I am thank you for you being brave within yourself, coming out there, using your voice and speaking about it, because sometimes people get into their own shell and their own world, and they just want to stay there. But we can't create change unless people know about it. Aside from the On-Air Advocate, I own another business, and I'm in the business community. And when I told my business friends what was going on with my son, that I've been actively seeking employment for over 3 years for him. I have pounded on employers' doors. I have talked to them. I've worked with every service, and I've come up with 2 hours a week. They're just appalled. Well, that can't be. Isn't there something else you should be doing? Isn't there, and it always comes back to you, right?
Right.
Something else? Isn't there someone else you can call? Well, my thing is, don't you think we would be doing that if that was the case? Because
absolutely,
who would ever choose, like you were saying, like right now it's winter time where you are, who would choose to sit, you know what I'm saying, by themselves? Yeah. Contained, without the socialization, the community, the purposeful, oh my gosh, there's so many
fulfillment. Yeah.
Fulfillment. So who would do that? Who would do
Yeah.
that? And I don't know if, friends in your network or even family members, maybe it's been enough years that they don't ask those things, but I feel like I have so many people that ask me that at this point. Well, isn't there this? Isn't there that? Didn't I heard about this? And I'm like, if it was out there, don't you think we'd be doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you get that question quite a bit?
Not really that much. I think it's more out of frustration than actual asking me the question, because the people in my life know what I've been up against. So I think it's more out of frustration and them being at their wits' end and seeing how hard that I push with nothing to meet me in the middle most times,
Right.
But I don't think it's them really in their heart thinking that I'm not doing enough
right.
to,
And I would say that the same for our family. I would say that it's more of, outside friends, people that don't see you every day, people that aren't, with you. But I think that after a few years, especially after entering that adult world, I think family really starts to see that there's so many things exhausted. Like you've exhausted the options, that are there. And at this point, Sarah, where are things at for you? I know you're back. Are you back home now in New Hampshire, right?
I'm back home in New Hampshire. Like I was telling you, I live in a really rural place, with no public transportation. So it's hard to get out and about and get many places, because I live with my mom, but she has her own life, and she was used to me, from being in college. She was used to, having an empty nest and kind of doing what she wanted to do with her day. So that's what happens, you know what I mean? So I don't really I have my needs met, but I don't have the ability to get out and get around at the drop of a hat, where it was a little bit easier when I lived in cities. So it's definitely a push and pull, like you were talking about, being in your shell and kind of retreating, and then getting into that like fighting mode, like I'm gonna continue to push forward and do this. And so it's kind of a push and pull depending on the day, the week, the month, whatever. I mean, but ultimately, what choice do we have than to keep moving forward? But it's always in the back of your mind, I think, am I doing enough? Because you are your own worst critic. And I know I'm not a mother, but I see my mother's struggle, and I know that she goes through her own struggle, saying, as a mother, am I doing enough? Am I, you know what I mean? It's always a question.
Yes.
So
now, have you found, since obviously in the last 10 years or so many different things online and working online and so on have become more popular? People have jobs and things like that, doing it from their home via more technical positions. Have any of those been things that you have reached out for, and what response have you gotten in that area?
Honestly, to tell you the truth, that is something that I will be looking into. That's not something that has sparked interest in me, I think, because of the social work background and me wanting so badly to work with people face to face. I've kind of shut myself off from that technology advantage, I guess you could say. But it's weird. And I'm only 35, but I want to obviously be doing more than I am currently. So it is a door that is open that I haven't gone down,
Well, and I have found just in having this on-air advocate community over the last 2 years, I've met so many amazing, amazing individuals. And I found a lot of them that do have different mobility issues or significant medical issues that love to write or love to do those things. They're at home doing those, but that doesn't always mean that those are paid positions. Sometimes
Right.
writing, they're doing their passion so that they, they're finding purpose in what they're, in what they're doing. But obviously that's not coming along with the monetary,
Right. And like you said at the beginning, the monetary piece is almost secondary. It's the purpose and fulfillment, and I guess what you choose to channel yourself into. I do write bi-weekly for coffee house writers, and a lot of my content has to do with disabilities, and they say write what you know, but I do branch out as well, but it does, unfortunately, it doesn't give me the same gleam in my eye as working with students or working with kids. It's hard to even volunteering for the local middle school and high school. When you volunteer, you can only do certain things because you're not legally covered to do certain things within certain settings. So it's just people have to keep navigating, keep pushing through to see what doors will open, and I think that's the place that I'm at right now.
And I have, heard from so many, and I see it for myself just in our everyday active life, is that so much of the time they want to cookie cutter the types of jobs that somebody that has a different ability can have. The only thing is that all those types of jobs a lot of times on a list are things that, like you were saying, that it doesn't bring that glimmer in your eye. It doesn't give you that sparkle. It doesn't make you excited. Might be things that might be volunteer, whatever opportunities, but are they really of any interest? My son was, for a bit, he did some volunteering at the library, and he was just wiping things down, and he just said, why do I have to come here, Mom? Like, I don't want to work at a library, I don't
right.
I mean, and it's volunteer, but I mean, it's the only things that are offered out there. And so
Right.
it's like when we talk about jobs, and the biggest thing that job coaches and like all of our departments of rehabilitation that help you find positions ask for is, or what are the things that you love? What are the things that you love to do? But 99% of the people that the jobs that they find for them are doing nothing that they ever wanted to do.
Right.
So I can see that when you're talking about online. I mean, you clearly have a passion for social work, and that's what you went to get your master's degree for it, so interaction, and that's that human contact, and, being able to physically, see people and be with them and whatnot. And I wonder if there are any types of communities or groups or things like that, like in this type of a platform, that you could be doing something, with individuals online, like groups of individuals this way.
That would be wonderful. And I know that, podcasts and different things and Facebook Lives have gotten more popular throughout the years. So it's so great to see that there are, different avenues that people can take to meet their own needs and, kind of make their own path. So that is definitely a bright spot in doing this today, because I actually, and I think I told you this through an email, I found you through a friend that I have online that also did an interview with you a couple months back.
Yeah.
So, the community that you can build around you can come from so many different places.
Yes. And I think for the individuals that have the different abilities to, a lot of times if the parents are involved or caregivers themselves in doing that care, it's amazing to have this kind of a group, because I went from being out in the workforce and doing events and being out with people 60, 70 hours a week to now I'm at home, for the most part.
Oh, wow.
Work that I do is, online. And so that feeling, like you want to see people, right? You mean everybody wants that. They want to. So I find myself sometimes even this way in this type of same platform. I jump on with some of the other moms and stuff and caregivers and whatnot that are friends in other states that are going through some of those same things. And so this kind of online platform is kind of a way that we get to see each other. Now that doesn't bring job fulfillment and doing the things you went to, what I'm saying, to school for, and that whole employment end of it. But I am thankful that technology has gotten to this point so that if we can't physically always see people,
But you do have that avenue, and like you were saying earlier, I said, I can pick up the phone and I can give you a call and we can do this over the phone. And you're like, well, no, it's better to have a face-to-face. And it kind of, a light bulb went off and I was like, oh yeah, we do have the ability to do that. It's just sitting down and making it happen. So
that is right. But Sarah, you made so many good points, and there needs to be great change. And when I posted the article that came out like 2 weeks ago, that now they're doing employment incentivizing to employers that come up with ideas. So it's like over $350,000 that the government is giving away for different employers that have ideas of how we can employ more people that have different abilities. And I just thought to myself, now that's not a lot of money, when you're talking about creating complete change or anything. But the fact that they're giving like bonus prizes for people's ideas is letting you know and letting the world know how big of an issue this is.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's like saying, hey, somebody put your coloring picture in and you're going to win a prize. They're literally, the government's coming out and saying, we don't know what else, what ways we should go. If you have ideas, you could win $100,000.
Right.
And
it's important to have, they have these work incentives, but it's also important to get, for lack of a better term, focus groups, and have the people that are the stakeholders in these jobs to be able to, sit around a room or do a chat like we're doing, and kind of brainstorm and kind of bring to the forefront what all the issues are, because as you said and as I've said, it's not something that the average person always thinks about or even has in their mind, because it's not something that they have to face.
right.
So it would be beneficial to have stakeholders be a part of that discussion.
Right. the whole process. And that's what I found, individually, me going to businesses and knocking on doors and talking to owners. That's what I found. Like, a lot of companies have never even had anyone work, especially mom and pop shops, little shops, sometimes bigger organizations have, but then they have such a regimen thing and the percentage that they have to have. But so many people have never embraced taken the opportunity to learn about, what they could do in their employment space in offering to people with different abilities. And so the answer I got a lot is, I don't know that we've ever done that. That was the answer I got.
Right.
And like, you've ever done that, you act like it's, like, okay, I don't know if I've done that before. I'd have to check with the corporate office. I don't know if we can do that, and so I think that there needs to be a lot more education given to business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before, the process, I think that's like one of the little parts, the big part, but it's a little part to start with, that there needs to be educators to go educate businesses on how they could be, how it could be a win-win, right? For both.
Oh, and absolutely. And having more accessibility would be a win-win for these businesses and organizations, because there would be more of an opportunity for different types of people to access and to come in and to be part of the system.
Right. Well, Sarah, I thank you so much for spending, have we been on here for almost an hour? I think we have.
Have we? Wow, it's gone by quick.
Almost this last hour this afternoon with me. I thank you for sharing. Now, you said that you do write like kind of a publication. It's with Coffee House.
Coffee House Writers, yes.
Okay. And can you drop that link below where people could, like when we get off of this live, in the comments, can you drop the link to where they go to find your page on there, or articles or anything like that?
Absolutely. Right now my articles are through the Medium publication.
Okay.
But they've gone over since to Coffee House Writers, so I can link my Medium articles, and then I can in the future give you those links for Coffee House Writers. And also you can have people get in touch with me on either one of my emails or my Twitter account. Okay. One of my emails is pushingforwardwithapurpose@gmail.com, and my other one that I use more often is sweens@aol.com, and my Twitter handle is also Sweens. That's SSWEENZ.
Okay, great. And then would you be able to drop those links below too for anybody who maybe didn't catch that?
Yes, once I figure out how to do that, but I absolutely
I'll show you how to do it.
Contact information, of course.
Yes. So that if you want to reach out to Sarah, if you listen to this, and if you would be an employer hearing this and you think that there is an opportunity that you could offer, two, if you're in that same situation and things come together when we all use our voices together. Greatness comes when we all come together as one, not when we stand as individuals, just by ourselves. So, if you have thoughts, maybe in one of your next publication, if you have thoughts for employment, other things, share them with me, share them with Sarah, share them in the lower part of this feed, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear what, you're going through, because all of that information together shared is really, truly what makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I'm definitely open to communicate and help anyone wherever and whenever I can. So just please reach out, and I look forward to talking with you.
Well, Sarah, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you here on the show today.
Thank you very much, Tammy. I appreciate it.
Yes, and thank you guys all for watching, or if you are catching this on the replay. And if you want to know more about the On Air Advocate, you can head on over to www.onairadvocate.com to see all of our services. Or if you want to join our private Facebook group, you can head up to the top of this Facebook page, hit the blue button, and that will let you into our private group. So until next time, later in the week, I got more interviews. You guys have a very blessed Tuesday. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Have a great night.